Hi, and welcome to a special episode of Mikey's Moments, a life adventure. Today is May 4th, or as I like to say as a Star Wars fan, may the 4th be with you. That's right, it's Star Wars Day. Now, if anybody who knows me really well knows, every Friday of every week is Star Wars Day. Star Wars Friday, I call it. I wear a Star Wars shirt every Friday. Well, almost every Friday, unless there's some other occasion that falls on it, like maybe the 4th of July or something like that, possibly Christmas. But that aside, I decided today I'm going to list my favorite Star Wars movies, number 1 through 12. That will include the entire Skywalker Saga and the two standalone movies. Now, some are saying, no, that should be 11. I consider The Clone Wars, the 2008 film, a Star Wars film, part of the Star Wars Skywalker Saga. Why? Because it was released to the theaters. You can disagree if you want, but, that's up to you. But that's the way I look at it, so that's what we're going to go with. So, before I get to listing them, I'm going to tell you how this list came together. This list came together by what I call watch probability. It's the probability that when this movie is on, that I'm going to watch it. Now, I could have been boring and ranked it from 1 to 12 and just said this is why. Or I could have said, hey, this gets 5 stars and it's number 1, and this gets 1 star and it's number 12, and then give like 1.2 stars or all this. That just seems not me. Now, to give you a baseline, I'm going to name several movies that aren't Star Wars movies, tell you the percentage of it, the chance that I'd be watching it. Now, what I mean by watching it is, if you're scrolling through the TV channels and you come across this film, what is the probability that you're just going to stop there and watch it, no matter where in the film it is? Whether it's at the beginning, in the middle, towards the end. So, to give you a baseline, let's start with 100% probability. And for me, that would be the movie Goodfellas. I think it is the best gangster film ever made, even better than The Godfather, which turns a lot of heads. But you know what? That's fine. But for me, if The Goodfellas is on, especially if it's on a channel that they haven't edited for violence and language, I'm watching it. There's a 100% chance of it. Doesn't matter where in the movie it's at. It's getting watched. Now on the other spectrum, the 0%. 0% Avatar. There is no chance in hell I'm going to stop and watch Avatar. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to turn the channel faster. I have not seen the sequel. I do not desire to see the sequel. And I probably never will see the sequel. Because the first one, visually, yes, it was stunning. But story-wise, it was freaking Fern Gully meets Dances with Wolves. And the bad guy's portrayal was cookie-cutter bad guy. So no, that movie is not getting watched. But here's something that's about a 70% chance of watching. Steel Magnolias. I really like that movie. It's a good movie. Any one of the DC or Marvel movies, there's a 70 to 90% chance that they're going to be watched. Something that would be between 0 and 50% chance would probably be something from the 80s, maybe like a Howard the Duck or really can't think off of it. Maybe if I was flicking through the channels right now, but I'm not. I'm too busy making this video and my podcast, which are simultaneous. I'll give you links later in both the podcast and here. Actually, I can just do it right now when I'm thinking about it. If you're listening to this and you'd like to see it, you can go to https://youtube.com/Zod1703. And if you're listening or you watch this and you don't think you have time to finish it and you just want to finish listening to it, you can go to https://anchor.fm/michael.r.cochran. And you can find me there and listen away. You could probably also search Mikey's Moments of Life Adventure on Spotify, and you'll find it there if you want to listen to the podcast. So, and I'm pretty sure if you were to search Mikey's Moments of Life Adventure on YouTube, you'd find me too. So go ahead if you haven't. And if you do, go and listen, subscribe. I really appreciate that. And like, and copy, and pass it on, because, why not? Mikey's a good guy. At least I think I'm a good guy, and I got a bunch of people that agree with me. But without further ado, I'm going to start my list. Number 1. 100% possibility that if this is on, I'm stopping and I'm watching it. That is Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back. For me, this is the best of the entire Star Wars franchise. And I'm talking Mandalorian, the cartoons, the whole kit and caboodle. Because, for me, this movie has it all. And probably because, we'll get into it when I get to A New Hope a little more, but for me, this was honestly really, really my first Star Wars movie. I saw New Hope in the theaters, and I'll get into that when we get to A New Hope, or why it's not really my first Star Wars movie, yet it is. Like I said, we'll cover it. But Empire just, it did everything for me. And this movie is perfect in my opinion. That's why it has a 100% probability of being watched. And, someone says, I love you, and the first thing that pops in my mind is, I know. And that's just one of the iconic lines from it. So, yes, number 1, The Empire Strikes Back. Number 2, Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Now, a lot of people don't like this because it's the third of the trilogy, and they say the weakest. Has some things going on it. But for me, there is a 95% chance that it's being watched. Because it brings the saga, what we thought was the end of the saga, to a close. It would have been a lot cooler if the Ewoks had been Wookiees like they had originally intended, but it's a lot easier finding smaller actors than it is taller actors. So I can understand why they did it, because of the lack of what they could do in 1983. But this film has what I believe one of the coolest lines in all of movie history. When Luke throws his lightsaber down and looks at the Emperor, and being a Jedi and being kind and using his manners, says, "You failed, Your Highness. I'll never turn to the dark side. I'm a Jedi like my father before me." Can't beat it. So, yes. Number 3 on my list, at about 92%, would be Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Of the prequels, this movie is the shit. Yes, it is fantastic. The fight scenes are awesome. The music is good. Yes, like most of the prequels, in my opinion, the dialogue can be a little problematic at times. Not the acting. The acting was great. But there's only so much actors can do with their script. There's only so much actors they can do with their direction. And I just believe that this movie, it sets the tone. It sets the tone that we go into for the original trilogy. And it was done superbly. Next up, also at about 92%, is Rogue One. I loved this movie when it came out, and I'll still watch it. And the reason I loved it is they took a simple idea, they expanded on it, and they gave us some of the coolest new characters in Star Wars in a long time. And then they did the dumbass thing of killing them off. And this is seen by how popular Andor was. Andor is a good, prequel to this movie, but this movie, it was fun. It had humor. It had action. It felt a lot like the original trilogy, and I think that's what it was supposed to. Plus, it was a bridge between the prequels and this. So, yeah. And that's, like I said, about a 92% itself. Next, number 5. At about 90% chance. It used to be higher, but it's getting lower as it ages. And that's Episode 4, A New Hope. Now, I said I'd promise to tell you why. This was my first Star Wars movie. I saw it in the theaters. I was 7, possibly 8, depending on when we saw it, because I can't nail it down. Because when I saw it when it first came out in the summer, depending if it had been August or not, I may have been 7. If it came out, which I think I remember my brothers taking it to me for this. They had seen it already, and we went in the fall when it was still playing, and I would have been 8. And I really don't remember a lot about the movie itself. I do now. I can pretty much quote almost every scene. But the things that I know for myself as real memories was the opening scene, of course, and then, as I told everybody else, the guy in black. The guy in black, Darth freaking Vader. And when they started showing the advertisements for Empire, I was like, I gotta go see this. I remember that guy. I remember that guy. I gotta go see it. I gotta go see it. So I think that may be why Empire is so close to me, because it really was. I'm 10 years old now. My brain is forming a little more. My memories are being more constant. So yeah. So Empire did it for me, but that's A New Hope, about 90%. Back in the day, like I said, if it was on, it was at 100. But as I get older and it doesn't sit as well, it goes down. Next up, at number 6, at about 85% and up chance, is Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. As for the far as the prequels go, I like this movie. They did the smart thing and got rid of Jar Jar. Well, he's in it, but not enough to really annoy you. And the action sequences are cool. The story is cool. Except for the fact that they bring in Jango Fett so they can try to make Boba Fett something that, better than a bit player that he is. But that's a different story for a different time. Yes, I do not like Boba Fett. I have never liked Boba Fett. I didn't even really care for the Book of Boba Fett, or as I call it, Mandalorian Season 2.5. So, yeah, but Attack of the Clones is very good, I thought. Like I said, the action sequences, the love story leaves a little bit wanting, but again, like with Revenge of the Sith, the dialogue, there's only so much the actors can do, and I was mad back then that the shit the actors got from a lot of the fanboys out there. And I'm a fanboy myself, I'll admit it. I'm one of those guys who, for a long time, I didn't frown upon the prequels, but I was trying to compare them. And then if I just realized if I just enjoyed it for being Star Wars, because it's Star Wars, I should have been better. And, and then Disney did a good thing. They bought Star Wars and made sure we all hate Star Wars. So, yeah, that worked out well. Number 7 on my list, at about 75%, starting to drop now, is Solo. Again, Solo was a movie we didn't need. And as a fanboy, like I said, I'm a fanboy, I was mad. I wasn't mad because they were making the movie. I was mad because when Disney bought Star Wars, they took years and years of books and magazines and comics and just threw them in the trash. And then they made their Disney rules. And one of the Disney's rules was, we're not going to recast this. These characters are too iconic. We can't do that. And then when their shit sucked, they recast Han Solo and gave us a Han Solo movie. Now, don't get me wrong. I thought, like I said, the actors did well. It was cast well. And therein lies the problem with Disney movies, in my opinion, is I didn't want to see a geriatric Han, Luke, and Leia. And that's what we got with the Disney trilogy, as I refer to it. And what I really wanted was Heir to the Empire. I love Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher. What they did for the characters was amazing. But I care more about Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Princess Leia Organa. So, they could have recast this and gave us that movie. Instead, they gave us Solo, and Solo worked. And the only problem is, it fell flat because they gave us a story that we really wanted but didn't need. Or, I said that wrong. They gave us a story we didn't want but didn't need, and they gave it to us anyway. Probably messed that up a lot, but that's okay. It's 8:15 in the morning, and I've been up since 4 o'clock yesterday. Third shifter, you know. Next, number 8, Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker. This is by far the best of the Disney trilogy. And there's about a 60% chance I'll watch it. And simply because of the action. Not so much for the story. And a little bit for the Easter eggs. And, well, to be honest, Palpatine. I freaking love Palpatine. He's the guy. He's the man. He's the dude. He's the one we really like. He's the one pulling all the strings in the prequels. He's got some of the best lines in Jedi. So yeah, if I'm going to watch any of the Disney movies, it's going to be Rise of Skywalker. Number 9, The Clone Wars. Yes, the one that I believe is part of the Skywalker Saga. We're introduced to Anakin's Padawan. We get to see Jabba, and the story is about a kidnapping, and it's not that good, and it's not that great. So there's about a 50% chance I'll watch it. And you don't really see it much on television, so it isn't going to come up. So, but I had to include it just so you can see where the remainders go and why. Next, also at about 50%, 10th on my list is Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. It's the beginning. Now, I remember when the trailer came out for this in 1999. It was on MTV. That's where it was showed first. I recorded it on this thing called a VCR. Yeah, a lot of you might not know what that is. But I did. I recorded it. I watched the teaser trailer every day because I was a Star Wars fan. And it was exciting. Star Wars was coming back to the theaters. They re-released the first trilogy, the original trilogy, in the movie theaters, and we went and we watched and we gobbled it up. We were ready. We were willing. We were fired up. And then we got a political drama. Now, don't get me wrong. I have a degree in political science, so the politics didn't bore me. I was just waiting for when we're going to get to Star Wars. And now, as time has passed, it's still a 50% chance I'll watch it. Because it has aged into a place of understanding. An understanding that you need a base to build upon. And if you're going to build an amazing tower that has become Star Wars, you need a solid foundation. And Phantom Menace is that foundation. Is it the foundation we thought we were going to get? No, but it holds. Number 11 on my list. Episode 7, The Force Awakens. This was Disney's first and sad attempt at doing the Star Wars movie without taking into account the stories that were out there. As I said earlier, they could have simply given us the stories we had come to love. The Heir to the Empire trilogy by Timothy Zahn is by far one of the best Star Wars stories you can ever have. If you've never read them, do yourself a favor and go get them. And then you'll be, oh my God, Disney, what the hell did you do? What happens is they take our beloved heroes from the original trilogy and they grow on it. And that's why they could have recast it, as I suggested. And the actors would have been different, but I'm sure they would have found a way to pay homage to the original actors. That's what happens sometimes. and we would have gotten a story that was compelling. Instead, in Force Awakens, we got a retelling of A New Hope. And it was a poor retelling. And that's why there's only about a 30 to 40% chance that I will watch The Force Awakens if it's on TV. Because it makes me sad. It makes me sad because of the possibilities that could have been there. So, yes. Which brings us to number 12, the last on my list in the Star Wars saga. And there is a 0% possibility that I will watch this if it's on television. If it's in somebody else's house and they have it on, I can't stop it. But if I have the remote in my hands and they get up, I'm turning it. And that is Episode 8, The Last Jedi. In my opinion, this is not a Star Wars movie. This is a sad, sad mistake by Disney. It's terrible. It is absolutely terrible. The story is terrible. And the reason the story is terrible is because the brain trust who put at Disney, who put people in charge of Star Wars in this trilogy, didn't go back and look at the other trilogies. It didn't look at the fan base, and it didn't look at their own legend material. What they did instead is simply screw everything up. And why I say they screwed everything up is, like I said, we got a geriatric Luke Skywalker, but then we got a Luke Skywalker that I did not recognize. A Luke Skywalker who was somebody I played as a child. I wanted to be Luke Skywalker. He was part of my being understanding of a hero. And what made Luke the most amazing person was he was hopeful. For you see, in Episode 4, New Hope, even after his aunt and uncle die, he's hopeful to go and help Ben take the data back to Alderaan. He becomes a hero. All because he has hope. He has hope that he can do it. Empire Strikes Back. He leaves, he goes, and he trains with Yoda because he hopes to become a Jedi. But during his training, his friends are in danger. What's he do? Because he hopes, he leaves, that he hopes he can rescue them, that he hopes he can make a difference. Return of the Jedi. What does he hope? He hopes he can save Han, which he does. But the biggest hope is, he hopes that that good inside his father is there, and he can save him. And that's what he does. And at the end of the trilogy, the hero that we grew up with, Luke Skywalker, has taken his hopes and made them a reality. And what does Disney give us? A hopeless person. Because Luke does the one thing that is completely out of character. He feels a little evil in his nephew, and what does he do? He ignites his lightsaber and thinks, I've got to kill him. That's not Luke Skywalker. And therefore, The Last Jedi is not a Star Wars movie. Because you took Luke Skywalker away from us. You took him away. You took hope away. And even though I will watch Rise of Skywalker because it's higher up on the list, it's a sad day because it wasn't what it could be. And now I hear that Disney's going to do a new Star Wars movie called The Jedi Academy with Rey. Well, if you look back at their legend books, there is a trilogy of books called The Jedi Academy. And who's the master? The hopeful Luke. So that's my list, based on watch probability. And as a Star Wars fan, May the 4th has become a very good holiday. It's up there, because it makes me smile. Star Wars still makes me smile. Star Wars still makes me happy. And to see what Disney is finally starting to do by cherry-picking pieces of the legends, as they call it, they realized that they had amazing stories. They just went about it wrong. They didn't trust the fans. They thought we wanted the old geriatric Star Wars people. No. Like I said, I loved the actors. I loved what they brought to the characters. But in the end, it was the characters I loved. From Chewbacca and R2-D2 to Han and Luke and Leia, Lando, the Ewoks, everybody that made Star Wars what it was. And then they introduced new ones, Padme and Anakin, young Obi-Wan, Mace. We got to see Yoda, Count Dooku, and Palpatine's plan. So, Disney, this is my list. And as you can see, you don't do very well on it. I hope you redeem yourselves. I love those characters, and I hope you realize we wanted those stories, and that's why we bought them and read them. That's why we looked at the comics, and that's why we made up our own stories. I can still remember my little figurines. And you know what's amazing? Some of the things I've seen on the Disney Channel and their shows, like The Bad Batch, I've done that. I've done that up here in my head. And I've done it in my heart. Because Star Wars is part of my head and heart. It's part of my life. So, again, may the Fourth be with you. This has been a Mikey moment. And remember, you never know when a moment's going to be there. So enjoy it.